Welcome to Season 5 of the Let's Talk Data podcast series, presented by SAP, where we explore game-changing technologies with leading experts.
Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to our Let's Talk Data series podcast. The episode today is about a very important topic, the tension of data. I'm joined today by Christopher Glover, who's Field CTO at BigID. Welcome, Christopher. Can you tell us more about BigID?
Well, thank you for having me. BigID was founded in 2016. We have a little over 300 employees across the globe, located in New York, Tel Aviv, London, Singapore. In addition to our offices, many of our employees work remotely. I myself work out of Seattle, Washington. The company has raised over $200 million in funding and officially reached unicorn status with a valuation of over $1 billion earlier this year. BigID's data intelligent platform enables organizations to know their enterprise data and take action for privacy, protection, and perspective. This is what we call our 3 Ps. Our core strength is in discovering data, but we take a different approach. We use a bottoms-up approach, meaning that we're looking at the data to solve data management problems, data security problems, data privacy problems. And that advanced data discovery engine has allowed us to automate the functions and other areas of data management.
Okay, cool. The unicorn status is really interesting, and those topics you mentioned, the 3 Ps, they really matter to SAP as well, because we're not just an ERP company. We do a lot of data. We've got a lot of databases, data management, and analytics tool. And that may be interesting for some of the audience listening today. Why is it we're so interested in data? And that's because, other data across the enterprise joined with SAP can add value into improving business processes, automating them, or even creating new business models. So, those 3 Ps, privacy is really important to SAP. We're a company headquartered in Europe, in Germany. So GDPR and the whole topic of privacy has been something SAP has cared passionately about in our near 50-year history now. And protection, we run many of the companies across the globe, some of the biggest companies across the globe, and protection of data and security of their operations is really important. But as I mentioned, opening up data, the new economy around data to drive that into business is really critical. So, and with 77% of the world's transactions touching an SAP system, that's an important responsibility and an important opportunity around data. So let me ask you a direct question then, Christopher. How do you think BigID can help those SAP customers?
Well, it's clear that both of our companies really care about data. But there's a growing tension that's caused by the need to leverage the data and the need to protect it. CDOs are caught in the middle, what most people think of as opposing forces. There's a pressure to maximize the utilization and value of data, and the pressure to maintain compliance with a growing list of regulations across the globe. Let me give you an example. In my roles of managing data and managing enterprise data architecture, I'd often get somebody visit my office from marketing, and they would come in, they would suggest they have a use case, and maybe the first time they come in, that use case is around using and leveraging data to deliver targeted messages to our customers, which seems like a reasonable use case, provided the consents are in place, reasonable use case. They may then come back later and say, hey, we have another idea, which is we've got a bunch of vendors on our platform, and we'd like to help them have targeted messages to our customers. Is that okay? And again, provided the right consents are in place, we can do that type of marketing. But then later they may come back and say, hey, we've got this really great opportunity. We have a US vendor who's trying to get into Germany, and they'd like to use our data about our German customers to deliver targeted messages to that marketplace. And you can see where these things are starting to get more and more difficult to support or are increasing risk. There's risk that the customers won't understand the use case. There's risk that somebody in the company or externally will use the data wrong or improperly. There's risk that the data is not going to be as secure as it moves through other systems in the environment. So I often think of data usage as a spectrum where on the right end of the spectrum, there might be companies that use their data without consideration of the consequences. And on the left side, it might be companies use the data or don't use the data. They lock it up, they secure it, and they never realize any of the value of that data. Where a company ends up on this spectrum is really tied to risk. The less you know about your data, the greater chance someone is going to use it incorrectly, perhaps producing the wrong results, or much, much worse, violating regulations that result in fines and erode customer trust. So what helps this? The more you know about your data, what kind of data you have, where it lives in your organization, how it's accessed, who owns it, how it can be used, the more you know, the more a company can move to the right of this spectrum, extending the use of the data while minimizing the risks. This is what BigID's data governance platform does for customers.
Okay, that's really quite profound, that spectrum of usage of data and trying to find the right place along that spectrum for your organization, your company. And I think that really lies at the heart of why SAP and BigID have formed this strategic technical partnership. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more then about how BigID is working with SAP in this area?
Well, an interesting fact, I've only been with BigID for a short time, but I was talking with one of our founders, Nimrod Vax, the other day, and he shared with me that SAP was one of our first connectors. It really speaks to the importance and the value of the partnership that we have at SAP, that really it was the first thing we thought about in our company and one of the environments that we knew we needed to work with to be successful. As you know, SAP Data Intelligence is the data management pillar of the SAP Business Technology Platform. It integrates, orchestrates, and provides a catalog of all the data assets. It's really the underlying engine that powers everything. BigID integrates into the SAP environment, but also discovers data in every other environment, whether it be traditional relational databases, NoSQL data stores, files, content management systems, code repositories, data streaming. We discover it all. And this is how many of our customers use us. We augment other catalogs and metadata repositories with technical, business, and operational metadata that we automatically discover. BigID is an open ecosystem. We understand that customers have other products in their environment. We work together with products like SAP to solve big enterprise data management problems. We strive to make it as easy as possible to do that with APIs and SDK, connectors, integrations to other business process and workflow tools. We have an integration point with SAP Customer Data Cloud to consume consent and preferences, and we map that back to the data that we find.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because that consent was a topic that you raised a lot in your previous example, that marketing example of increasing use of customer data. So that's really going to become an important topic. And another thing you mentioned there was about data catalogs. I'm hearing more and more about data catalogs. They seem to have become a hot topic in recent years. Why do you think that is?
Well, data catalogs are not new. They are a new answer to an old question, which is, what data do I have and how can I use it? As companies become more data-driven, they need to optimize, expedite, and expand usage of their data. Catalogs are the place where everyone in a company starts when they want to use data. But filling a catalog with all the relevant information a person needs to make decisions about how to solve data problems is not simple. Traditionally, a company would use an army of data stewards to analyze data sources and survey SMEs and owners and custodians in the company and document all this and all the data assets that a company has. This was a Sisyphean task in the past. BigID automates the discovery process. It collects the technical and operational metadata. It suggests business terms. It suggests reference and master data sets. Our stewardship application allows stewards to review, validate, and approve what is found and suggested by BigID. I mean, this is really using machines and ML and AI as tools to help the data steward and make the catalog accurate and keep it current.
that sounds really interesting as well. So how does BigID actually do that?
You can't automate anything in your enterprise data environment without metadata. It's really the starting place for answering any question or task that you might have. BigID provides the metadata in the absence of metadata. We pull in all the technical metadata, we suggest what the business metadata might be, and this is work that we're doing alongside SAP Data Intelligence Business Technology Platform. We're really enhancing and allowing all the tools in the environment to be better.
Yeah, and on that point, very specifically about the integration and augmentation that BigID does with SAP Data Intelligence. If any of the listeners to this podcast are interested, there's a webinar that will go through that in more detail, including some demos. You should be able to find that webinar if you just search for events SAP Data Intelligence, and that should take you to the location where you can get that information. So, Christopher, we've covered a real lot of information and points in our discussion today. So if a business wants to become more data-driven, and for all those benefits that you've described earlier, what do you think would be some of the key points, the key takeaways to consider? And how and where do you think SAP and BigID can help?
I would start with a modern metadata catalog. This is really the starting place to enable any data management function in today's data environments. It can be SAP's catalog, BigID's catalog, or another catalog. Just make sure it is a modern day catalog. The second thing I would say is create a solution that includes both the catalog and the automated discovery. Having a catalog without an intelligent process to populate it makes no sense. It's going backwards. It's really going back to that army of owners and stewards that you need to create and maintain it. And the third thing I would say is, use the catalog with SAP's data intelligence to automate the integration of your data.
Okay, they are wise words. It's been a fascinating discussion. Christopher, thank you for spending time with us today. If the audience would like to know more about SAP and BigID's partnership, please visit sap.com or search for SAP Data Mapping and Protection, and that will take you to our landing page where you'll find lots more information. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.